Let's talk about graphing quadratic functions and doing some transformations. So the parent graph y equals x squared, we know, is this really basic parabola that sits right at the origin and smiles. And so we're going to be talking about things that alter that. So in A here it says use the transformations to get the graph of y equals negative 1/2 x squared. What I do know here is, see how they've put the parentheses around the negative 1/2 and the x and then squared it? Because they've done that, in order to mess with this graph, what you're going to want to do is make a little table of values. So if I were to plug in 0 for x, then I would have 0 plugged in right there. So I'd have negative 1/2 times 0, which is 0, and 0 squared is 0. So we still have this point. That's great. And then if I plugged in a 1 for x, I would have negative 1/2 times 1, which is negative 1/2. And then I'm going to do negative 1/2 squared, which is this. So that becomes a positive 1/4. So I'm going to have the point 1 and 1/4. That's not a really nice, easy one to graph on here unless you can type it in. So let's go ahead and get something a little bit easier. Let's put in a 2. If I plug in a 2, I'm going to have negative 1/2 times 2. We can put the 2 over 1. And so the 2's will cancel, and I'll get negative 1 times 1, which is negative 1. So that's one that we can plot pretty well. We'll go over to 2, and then we'll have to go down to 1. Parabolas are always symmetrical, so we can just go ahead and pull this over here. And probably that's enough to go ahead and graph this like this and make sure that it's appropriately sized. Again, it's frowning because of the negative, and it has become a little wider, but it's not quite the traditional. Because of these parentheses, we're mostly just sort of exploring what would happen to these graphs if we did these things. I found that just a little hard to understand when I was looking at this problem. So the second one is one of the standard transformations we've talked about. The negative 2 in the front here, that's our A. And so because it's negative, we're going to end up with a frown. And we are also going to get skinny because it is a greater than 1. And so again, we might want to just come up with a little chart so that we know exactly where to put our points. So we're going to have 0 and 0 again. You could plug that in and test it, but anything times 0, even 0 squared, can be 0. If I plug in a 1, I'm going to have negative 2 times 1 squared. 1 squared is just 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So I'll have 1 and negative 2. This is a point. I can probably go ahead and just pull this down like this, and you can see it sort of lean out and frown. That should be enough to do that one. Let me look at the problem and make sure I can see the whole problem. Good. Let's pop over to the explanation. You can see that. Current problem, there we go. There's theirs. And then there's this one. Really the easiest way to do these is just to make a little table and plug in a number, and then you're going to know where your new points are, so you can drag that parabola and see how it's going to change.